I am indeed Peter Reid. I'm Vice President of Communications for the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, and we are the oldest think tank in the world, but it's a kind of a double-edged sword when you say to people, particularly your funders, we've been at international peace for 98 years and we're still not there, and you look around the international community and it's probably never been as bad a situation as before, so we tend to use that carefully and wisely. Anyway, thank you for inviting me today. It's an honor to be here with you today in Prague. This important conference, my thanks to both OSI's Think Tank Fund and to PASOS for inviting me to join you. I was asked to talk for quite a while, but as it's 3:15 in the morning from me, I'm counting on you to stay awake, and I don't want to send myself to sleep, so I'm going to be quite brief, and then hopefully we can have a proper Q&A. In life, there's no great mystery to communicating. After all, it's almost everything we say and do. So what I hope today that we can achieve is to go about finding the best ways to communicate simply and effectively. And I think the best tagline I have to sum up what I would say is, know yourself well and know your audience better. I'm trying to create a market niche for both your institution or your individual work, whether it's a paper or a book or whatever, even an interview or an article. It's important that you need to understand your own work, why it's different from that is already out there, what value it adds, but also the market into which you're going to drop it where it is destined, why the market should need it. Our market is an extremely crowded one, as we all know, and we need to better understand that market in order to find a way to stand out in it. Although communicating is an art, not a science, whether your strategy is designed to sell your institution or a particular product, there are some basic criteria that you must establish, even for an article. What is your objective? What is the audience you're trying to reach? What are the key messages you want that audience to hear or to take away from your piece? And what are the main tools you will use to get across those messages? The resources and the timescale that your strategy will require, and importantly, how you plan to monitor and evaluate your progress. In all these areas, we must all try and identify and overcome a lot of challenges and barriers to success, and you'll do that a lot more effectively if you identify them before you go in. So how do you go about knowing yourself well? The first thing you need to do, whether it's a product again or an institution, everything I'm going to say applies, is to do a situation analysis. Where are you now? Any communications plan has to ask the fundamental questions. Why does an organization exist? What is it trying to achieve? What are the key objectives? This will provide the grounding to enable you to construct your plan. Having done this, we need to ask ourselves how aware the public are of our work and what their opinion is of it. In order to get an objective view, some research will probably be required. Often a quick questionnaire. The web provides several effective and free forms such as WebMonkey, or phone calls to a reasonable selection of people will do. Carnegie has just undertaken its first independent research project to look at our market and to find out what they think of us, and it cost me a fortune. Would I do it again? Yes, because it was the most valuable information we got from it. But as I say, you don't need to have to spend money. You can use a web questionnaire, you can do it with a bunch of people you know. Don't ask your friends, though. Make sure it's people who will give you an objective judgment. Then you will have identified your position, your strengths and weaknesses in the people's minds that you're trying to reach. Then you need to work out where you want to go. Where do you want to be in 3 or 5 years' time or 10 years' time, or perhaps at the end of a development campaign or a particular product that you're bringing out? Do you want more people to know about you? If so, why? If you want more people to know about you, have you the capacity to deal with that increased audience? Or do you simply want to get to know the same number of people better? Objectives are the key to the success of your communication strategy, so they must be organizationally driven. Communications work in an organization is not an end in itself, but should serve and hence be aligned with your organizational objectives. By aligning both together, you help reinforce the importance and relevance of communications, and thereby, I hope, make a better case for proper resourcing of those activities. And here I'd like to make a heartfelt plea to those of you who are managers of communications people or hope to be in the future. Putting communications first or blaming it when you don't get the result you want is not an excuse or a reason. What you must look first at is the strategy or the research. Is it good enough for the market? It's usually not the communications. In almost every job I've done, there's been a constant refrain at one time or other, which is, why is our message not getting through? Nowhere was this more true than I worked in the British Foreign Office, when I was regularly summoned with colleagues to Downing Street to be lectured on why our message wasn't getting through on, guess what? Iraq and Afghanistan. As the political and security picture deteriorated in both and the death tolls rose, people would turn to us and say, why are you not getting our message through? Well, guess what? The strategy was wrong. And that's why the message wasn't getting through. So if a policy or a strategy or a document isn't right for the market that it's going to, no amount of communication will get it right. That's not knowing yourself. And the other extreme, when I arrived in Carnegie and made my round of get-to-know-you calls, several scholars said to me, basically, leave me alone. I just want to write. I don't want to go to Congress and talk to them. I don't want to talk to the media. And my reply was, well, why do you want to write? What is it you're trying to achieve? Why should we bother to pay you? If your work has no effect other than to please you and a small group of people, you've got to question yourself and say, why are you doing it? Why should your organization be supporting it? At Carnegie, we're about making a difference, to improve policy by bringing to the formulation of views of the views of others from around the world to policy formulation. We want an America that listens, and if we don't know or listen to our target audiences, then we might as well stay at home as well. So it's crucial to ensure you have a strategy, clear objectives for your organization before you develop your communication strategy. Know where you are, where you want to be, and by when, and then work out how you're going to get there. Once you have that clear vision, you need to work out who your audience is, who it is you want to explain these objectives to. What section of the community are you trying to reach? Is it just a handful of specialists on an important issue? Or mass public opinion? Or somewhere in between? The general public or everybody is too vague an answer. The tighter you define your target audiences, the more effective you will be in getting them across. And targeting does not mean excluding people. It just simply means getting to know a smaller group of people better and honing your message to make sure they understand it. Then allow the policymakers, the media, and other influencers and promulgators to do your job for you. Once you've got through to those key people to which your policy on this particular issue will count, they'll do the sales job for you. So once you've identified your audiences, get to know them. Find out where they get their information from, what papers they read. Do they listen to local TV and radio, or national or international? Are they part of a network you can tap into? The best audiences to target in order to achieve an objective may not always be the obvious ones. And in fact, targeting obvious audiences, such as the media, when they're not appropriate for an individual product, may be counterproductive. All of us would like a higher media and political profile. They're the two toughest audiences to crack. Yet activities aimed towards this may ultimately be self-serving and only communications-driven without the desired impact. In fact, they can be a negative in their effect because you will divert limited resources away that could otherwise be put to targeting key policymakers or other stakeholders. I expect your audiences will broadly be the same as mine. Existing donors, prospective donors, domestic government, local and central, key foreign governments, legislature, media, relevant business groups, think tanks and university faculties. They have all got one thing in common. They're all far too busy to read everything that we send them. So how do we find out what they will read? What is it that we send them will actually grab their attention? The secret to knowing your audience is to talk to them, to ask them, and listen to them. Without becoming audience-driven, you need to know what it is they want. And people pay attention to people who listen to them because they feel a sense of consultation and partnership. Here too, surveys are a good idea, not just to establish where you are in the audience's mind, but also so they can tell you what they want from you. So ideally, every few years, I would suggest you conduct a survey sample of your audience and find out, are you delivering what they need and in a form that you read. Now, surveys, as I said, are notorious for being poor and the returns being expensive to properly conduct. And the busiest people that you want to get the views of rarely reply to them. But there are cost-free alternatives. All of your team, all of us are communicators, whatever we're doing, for the institution and for your individual work. Every one of them should regularly, if informally, communicate with your audience, with key contacts, asking their advice, their review, asking them about the future. What is it they would like to see us doing? Quite often, I used to work in government, there were many issues we would love to have conducted research in the Foreign Office. We couldn't because it was too sensitive and they might leak. But think tanks can do it for us. Think tanks can do it for governments. There are things that are politically unacceptable for governments to do that think tanks can do. So again, make sure you ask your audiences what they need. And don't just ask about your work or your future work. Ask about your overall mission. Ask about your products and how you deliver them. Be smart. Ask who does it better and who does it worse. Once you've identified these audiences, what is it you want to say to them? How do you formulate your key messages? It's crucial that you narrow down what you want to say as much as possible to something very simple, and that rarely involves a complex policy argument. You should ask yourself, why should our target audience come to us? The answer, because we're good, is not good enough. Why are we good? Why are we distinctive from others? And what are we offering that's new? Are we offering a better product than others? Are we trustworthy? Do we know what we're talking about? Those are the key messages you have to answer for your audience and get them across. To maximize impact, you should summarize the case in a handful of key points that can be constantly repeated. And trust me, you can never repeat them enough, over and over again. Once you've agreed these messages, how do you deploy them? What tools do you use to get them across? This is again based on knowing your audience, where and how they get their information. Think beyond media relations. Is it word of mouth? Is it conferences? Is it meetings? Is it telephone briefings? Is it all of the above? Your methods should be based as much as possible on what you know about your target audience. There's no point in getting great effort into putting an article in a local newspaper if they don't read that paper. The tools we use vary according to who we're trying to reach, but they largely included some sort of configuration of the following. First, building and maintaining an effective database of your audiences. We do that on a daily basis. We're constantly updating our database. We tag every single entry to say, 6 months later it pops up, we have to check, is it still the same person, is it still the same contact, still doing the same job? We want to make sure we divide them into policy areas, into geographic areas, so our customers who are interested in getting information on China's economic future do not get our information on non-proliferation of nuclear weapons and vice versa. Similarly, updating your database is crucial. There's nothing worse than receiving a mailing with the name of your predecessor's predecessor on it, particularly if that person has left this mortal world. The product itself should be original and based on empirical and cited research. I can't agree with you more, Jeff. Selling something is not about ignoring the something. The something must be there. Must have cited research, not assertions or opinion. It should make real, practical, workable policy suggestions and carry a succinct summary in order to encourage that very busy audience we just discussed. Take the time to read it. Pay careful attention to important detail like the title of the product. Use them to summarize the issue at hand, but also to pose the question that you think your audience is grappling to answer. And if sent by email, the title of that email should grab the recipient's attention too. Although you have to avoid overselling a product, making it sound like Viagra commercial or something else that should end up in your spam filter is not a good idea. Use the power of your president's reputation or any other important members of your board when you're trying to get the attention of VIPs. Send them a copy, but tailored with a letter from your board member or your trustee. They will open it, they will read it if it comes from them. And crucially, consider your timing. At Carnegie, we maintain a global calendar of our internal work as it progresses, and external news pegs and other events that we can tie it to. For example, we prepared a year ago and just produced a series of policy